are taking all necessary precautions to ensure that their interests are protected. As a result, a contingency factor has been added to the charge for the project to take account of the possibility of certain extraordinary events that could negatively impact the project financing. Such a condition is not unique to these hospitals, but is typical for commercial ventures in the region as well as internationally. In the wake of the subprime crisis and issues concerning recession and inflation, financial institutions are taking all necessary measures to secure their position as it relates to debt.
This deal was supposedly done in 2006 before the subprime meltdown. And is the Minister of Finance saying in his statement that we should pay for America's subprime mess? Let us be very clear. This is nothing more than a mortgage.
The public should also be aware that the financial and organizational structure for these hospitals is unavoidably complex.
Let us be clear. Nothing should be too complex for the people. This is nothing more than a large mortgage.
It not only involves the government and a multinational corporation, but also a syndicate of banks, general contractors, and various subcontractors. The process of registering the charge for this project was tedious and time-consuming. The financiers, therefore, were not prepared to take the risk of having to apply for a variation of charge if this were to become necessary, and therefore had factored into the original charge scope for additional financing without having.
We now hear here that there is contingency built in for additional financing. We ask the question, why is it necessary to have additional financing provided for when this is already the most inflated deal of all time in the Turks and Caicos Islands?
To concern themselves with the variation of the instrument. The fact that approximately 110 million in contingency is provided for in the instrument does not mean that any of it would be utilized. Some of these scenarios
We asked whether the Minister of Finance in his statement took time to rationalize the letter written from the bank, the amount that is listed in the mortgage, and what he is reporting to people in his statement. He is saying $110 million. Now, if we believe this statement, how does he get to 110 million? The statement says 124 million for the project, but the charge is of $235 million. We calculate the difference between 124 and 235 to be 111. We would challenge all primary school and high school students out there to do that math, to write 235 minus 124 and see whether they come up with 110 or 111, and then they can answer the Minister of Finance.
The contingency factors contemplated include the following. In the event of the termination of a provider due to lack of performance and a new provider is retained, and as a result, it causes the project to require additional financing.
We asked the question here, what about a bond, a performance bond? The biggest deal does not have a construction bond. Is that what the Minister of Finance is telling us? If the service provider is what is being referred to instead of the construction contract or the construction company, if the service provider is what is being referred to here, we ask, would we have to pay for another provider to replace InterHealth Canada? Is that what the additional sums are for?
Should interest rate and increase significantly during construction or significant delays occur, which are beyond the control of the parties, and there is a need for the funders to step in to resolve the issue.
We would expect that in a statement like this, the Minister of Finance would say what the interest rates are. We do not know what the interest rate is. Would the government please say? This is an opportunity for the government to say what the interest rates is. Why are we budgeting $111 million for interest rates.
In the event the scope of the project were to be expanded and additional funding is necessary, given that the project agreement spreads over a period of 25 years. The hospital's project was undertaken in accordance with international best practice in procurement practice and benefited from the expertise of many bright Turks and Caicos Island civil servants, including PS Finance Dalton Jones, Principal Crown Counsel Ronley Redwood Knowles, Director of Health Services Dr. Rufus Jones, PS Health Denny Saunders, Special Advisor to the Ministry of Health Honorable Royal Robinson, and a formidable international team of professionals from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Evershares, Arabs, and many other outstanding organizations.
We would pause here to say that we agree that these civil servants that the Minister of Finance is applauding in his statement, we agree that these civil servants are bright Turks and Caicos Islanders. We have never questioned the integrity of our civil servants.
Furthermore, the Foreign Commonwealth Office, FCO, and the Governor's Office were involved and informed of the process of this project at every pivotal point. To say that this process was completely transparent is an understatement. The people who have worked on this project ought to be commended and recognized for their outstanding contribution rather than being insulted by members of the opposition who appear to be hell-bent on tearing this country apart with their foolish accusations.
We have never tried to tear this country apart. This is a PNP accusation that can no longer stand the test of time. People need to open their eyes and see who is trying to tear this country apart. We have always done our best to build the people of this country. And once again, the PNP needs to move away from this type of petty political rhetoric when they don't have proper explanations for the people.
This hospital project structure has been held up as a model for future hospital structures.
If this project was so transparent, why is it that they had to wait until we brought this forward? And why will it take a couple of weeks before they circulate it, as we will see?
In the weeks to come, copies of the structure will be circulated and placed at public locations where people can access them. Honorable Floyd B. Hall, Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance. I'll now read you portions of a letter directed to me from Mark Young from First Caribbean, who is the Corporate Director of Finance for First Caribbean. Dear Honorable Robinson, we write to you in your capacity as the Turks and Caicos Islands Government Representative on Turks and Caicos Islands Hospitals Project, in our capacity as agent for the senior finance parties and as defined in the credit agreement. You have requested that we write to outline the rationale and reason for the difference in the finance amount raised of approximately $123,620,000, including senior debt, mezzanine debt, subordinate debt, and equity, and the registered charge of First Caribbean as a security trustee for the funding group of $235 million.
This is the first time that we learned that there was equity as part of the deal. How much equity was sold and to whom?
The reason for the difference